So welcome to another episode of Family Business Experts. I'm joined here by a real expert in family business. Loes, pleasure to have you
Thank
on
you.
one of our episodes. You've flown in all the way from Germany.
Yes.
Is that right?
Yes.
To Dubai.
Yes.
And you've had 20 years experience, I believe, now being a psychologist and working with different family businesses across the world. And I'm curious, you're a family member, one of 7 children?
Yes, I'm the youngest. My father has 7 children.
Wow.
And yeah.
And where are you in the 7?
I'm the youngest one.
Youngest?
I'm the Benjamin.
So what was that like growing up with 6 older siblings?
I think it always makes me very curious to people and all the different ages. And I think I had from very young on a very interest to be curious about all the differences and all the stories as well of the elders and what they have to share. And I think that's part of having 6 siblings above me.
Does that mean you become the most wisest then because you learn from the other 6?
No, definitely not. No, definitely not. I think the only thing that it brought is just a deep appreciation for differences of people, and that there are so many different perspectives that you can have in life.
So is it true that there is a first child syndrome, second child syndrome, third, fourth? It repeats itself maybe at 5th, 6th, 7th with the first 4. Then it depends on the gaps.
Yes.
I mean, have you ever studied that?
Yeah, there is something beautiful, I think, in every single range. And it is very common that if you're the first one, of course, there's different challenges and different opportunities that come along with that. Than being the middle one that always needs to search and being like a mediator, or being maybe the last one that is maybe forgotten or that needs to fight more, or the first one that actually is responsible in a certain way, almost like a parent. So there's these common things that we see but everything has something special.
So you're the founder of Legacy Partners.
Yes.
Growing business, helping lots of families.
Yes.
How did the journey begin to get into psychology and other areas and then launching Legacy Mentors?
Yeah, so 20 years ago I studied psychology and first really as a clinical psychologist. So I was a system therapist, so I had a lot of families, a lot of partners and marriages and people as well in psychiatry and a lot of very sincere mental issues. And after 10 years, I think when I started to have my own children, I really wanted to shift and do something completely different and focus on a different area of life.
Just going back for a second, for someone who's watching this as a family business owner or a next-gen member or a spouse, there's different terminology used in the industry. Just briefly, could you educate us on the difference between a counselor or a therapist, or a therapist and a psychologist, or a clinical psychologist, or however many other labels there are?
Yes.
What's the distinction between these different areas?
So in general, you see that a lot of people say, I'm a coach, I'm a business coach, or I'm a life coach, and they had a beautiful education for that. Then there's a difference if you're a psychologist. That's a completely different education, where you really study what is normal and what is abnormal behavior. And then there's a psychiatrist who's a doctor. And then you have all the different kind of expertises within psychology. So you have a clinical therapist, or you have a system therapist who is educated in systems and families.
Right.
And that's the one that I did. Yeah.
So clinical, what's the distinctions there? What's one an expert in when it comes to clinical linked with therapy, being a therapist, being a coach? What's the advantage of that if someone's out there looking for one and maybe they have got some sensitive issues to sort out in their family?
Yes. So it depends a little bit on the country where you live. They all have different labels, and some of the professions are secured and others are not. So in some countries everybody can say I'm a therapist, and in others you really need to have certain kind of education and continued education to call yourself, for example, psychotherapist. So for me it's not that important to look at the different kind of therapist. I think what is really important that you have a very good connection with your coach or therapist. So I call it a mentor. I don't like to call myself.
You've got to have a trusted relationship, don't you?
Yes.
I mean, most people they want to talk to a therapist or an expert, but they could be a bit shy. They feel, I don't want to be vulnerable, don't want to open myself up. Can I trust this person? Especially with family businesses, what if information leaks? Have you found that at all?
Yeah, completely. Trust is most important. and that you feel that somebody is really listening and really understanding your story and non-judgmental about you. And then of course it's very important somebody has all the experience, but I think this should be a given, and that there should be in order for such an intense relationship, there should be a trust basis, and that is something that has to do with intuition. Yeah.
So how did that connect for you in your journey with family businesses specifically?
Yeah, so I think after the first 10 years, and I got my first 2 children myself, I became a mother, and I really wanted to focus more on the creativity, and that's why I went more into companies and organizations. And I'm a spouse as well within YPO, the Young President Organization, so part of my clients always have been family businesses. And the more I got into this field, the more I was very much interested and intrigued. And I think just everything sort of came together as being the youngest of a big family, and studied family therapy, relationship therapy, and then all of a sudden I could combine everything that I like in life, where the people that are building and having impact and building beautiful companies as well bring along their own relationships within the family and bring along their own transformation, own personal development, and how these 3 different journeys, as I call them, link into each other.
So what's the most extreme case study you've got? What's the most extreme case you've had? Without getting into any, you can change the names, you can change the country. What could you give us an example of what you had to face when you came into a family?
Yes, definitely. I think one of the most interesting stories is a very famous family in Asia, and I will change it around a little bit.
Mexico, they were in Mexico, weren't they?
For example, let's say they're Mexican. There was a suicide within the family, and
someone younger or senior?
35 years old.
Wow.
And the person was actually a psychologist herself. And this was such an impactful happening in the family that nobody really talked about it afterwards anymore. So there were a lot of missing conversations, a lot of guilt feelings, a lot of judgments, a lot of fears that were actually never discussed with each other. So the family ended up in conflicts, in a lot of silence, and I think that it almost broke the wealth within the family, because people just were not able to sort of deal with what happened. And sometimes we think it's easier to avoid a subject because then maybe it's not present and it's just too painful in our lives. But unfortunately, when we don't discuss it and when we sort of close a subject, it actually starts to have a lot of influence in everybody's lives. So it was a very sad
So what were some of the things that you did to help this family in this situation?
It went over a few years. These things take time.
Right.
And one of the beautiful tools that we used was a communication technique, is that a lot of the people could not talk to each other anymore. There was a lot of fights, and although for the outer world you could not really see it, but inside of the family there was a lot of trouble. So we brought everybody together, all the generations, and we had sort of a game. So we played a dinner at a game with certain questions, and the question could be, for example, what is your earliest memory of a certain celebration of a certain party that everybody was celebrating in that country? And then like all the generation and the younger generation started to share these very authentic stories and how they see life.
That's great.
And this brought a completely new element of trust within this family, like, oh, this is as well possible. We can actually relate in a completely different way.
So that brought up more communication.
Exactly.
You got them smiling.
Exactly.
They were happy. They were grateful.
Exactly.
There were good memories.
Exactly, and then you go home and then you know that there's as well a different way of relating to each other. And then often it just takes one single person to sort of take the first step to bring along a sort of a chain of events afterwards that can open up the missing conversations.
I recently had a case in the Middle East of a father who we went to see, only had one son and who passed away in an accident. He was devastated. And his son was going to be the successor. Has daughters, and now culturally, in some cultures in this region, It can be male-dominated, so sometimes the daughters don't come into that business, and now he's forced upon bringing them into the business, and hopefully one of them can become a successor. Again, if anyone else has been through that, what other advice would you give? It's not just suicide, but someone has had an accident, they've passed away at a fairly young age, but that was going to be the successor in the bloodline. You know, what tips would you have of how a parent should deal with that?
So I think in general, with very difficult family situations, I think the first thing that you should do is reframe what actually is happening. So instead of saying there is a huge conflict or a huge stressor here, to say it's actually an opportunity for a certain change. And we sometimes think that the really difficult things, that they are fixed and that is something we need to live with. But a lot of the realities that we have are very influenced about our perception. So I think that's the first thing. First is to see it as an opportunity for change. And then...
even though it could be devastating.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It doesn't feel like it's an opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah. And although then instead of walking away from it, to sort of staying open again and to take a look at it, to dare to have the courage to see it as something that can actually bring a new paradigm or bring something new within the whole system.
So that's called reframing.
Reframing, that's the first one.
That's a mental shift.
That's a mental, very important shift.
Okay.
Yeah, and otherwise we sort of stay in our old stories and thinking, oh, this is just too bad or this is too painful, and then we don't sort of bring ourselves in a state to actually be open to find a solution. Yeah, so that's the first one. And I think the second one would be vulnerability. So for people to really dare to share their deepest emotions with each other. And here's, of course, it's handy that like the leader or the whatever that is in a company or in a family or the patriarch would be the first one, because thereby the rest will follow, and there will be a culture of trust within the family where without judgment or the fear of judgment, people can start to really express what is happening.
How do you break that when it comes to culture? Yeah. So in Africa, Middle East, South Asia, this part of the world, most of the children are grown up to respect the elders.
Yeah.
In some cases, keep your mouth shut.
Yeah.
We've been in situations in boardrooms where the patriarch, the most senior member in the family, is pretty much verbalizing everything.
Yeah.
Everybody else is saying yes, 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 but you can see from body language they're going, no, no, no. And they have this huge fear that they cannot speak up. One-to-one they will, but not in a group setting. What tips have you got for maybe a next-gen member or someone who's facing that?
Yes, yeah. So this is a very sensitive subject. And again, it takes a lot of time. It takes time to build a culture. It takes time. There is a lot of values already within the family, but to actually really start to be aware of these values and to find what is uniting a family deeper than maybe just rules about when you can speak up or not speak up and all the rules of respect, etc. There's, I think, always an underlayer of different values that actually is connecting the family. What is very useful to take the time as a family to find those values and find sort of like the common purpose or the common why you are together, why you're one family. I think if you ask what to say to a next gen, it starts with self-awareness. So maybe you cannot change the whole family. Maybe there's certain things that cannot be changed. But what you can change is the way you look at yourself and how you look at the experiences. And this is already a major step.
Could you give us an example of
definitely.
Self-awareness?
Yeah. I have, for example, a case study of a family in India, and the next gen here was just terrified. The family has a lot of companies, and he is also in charge of a lot of responsibility. But actually he is very afraid, and the self-awareness with him and the personal journey that he took with one of our mentors was really about finding out what it is actually that is so terrifying for him. And one of the major points is that he found out that it's based upon a lot of ideas that may not be true always, or it was more the fear about the fear. It's more certain ideas and expectations that he had that he could not face, for example, to have certain discussions with his father. And once he started to be aware of this process that happened in himself during his whole life, he could actually have that conversation for the first time without being terrified and without probably, otherwise it would never have happened for him to start to be a more authentic person and to reconnect with the family.
And that created different communication, did it, between father and son?
Exactly.
Led to other things, I take it, as the relationship shifted.
That's the way it goes often. That's if one person starts to change, then often we start to adapt, and it's sort of natural. The systems can change its values.
What are your thoughts on addictions? My understanding is 1 out of 7 people have an addiction, whether it's mild, with a bit of dark chocolate underneath the pillow, all the way to something extreme. And especially in the region here where trillions of dollars over the next decade, maximum 15 years, is going to be passed on to a third generation who are going to have millions and millions, if not billions of dollars at hand. And some of them have severe addictions that could sabotage that wealth pool. What's your thoughts around addictions and what you've noticed happening in families?
Yeah, definitely. So I think, again, it's about rephrasing for me. So instead of saying, this person has an addiction, this is an enormous problem, and how are we going to help him with his problem, I think we could see it as this is a symptom of something that needs to be changed. This is an opportunity to look into family dynamics or look into a certain system, and the person sort of takes an addiction or takes a certain symptom as a symbol of wanting to have a change. So again, it's about finding the right state to approach a problem as an opportunity instead of just saying this is something terrible that needs to change itself.
But is this when someone like you would get involved one-to-one with that member?
Yes.
And again, depending on, as we said, coaching, counselling, therapy, whatever levels there are, rehab, send them off for 3 months somewhere. Is that where you would get involved in the levels to overcome it? To actually start having a relationship first and have an understanding who is the person. He is not the addiction, so there's a whole person behind one of the. He now may have an addiction, but there's a reason why. There was, for example, that he didn't dare to feel what is really happening, and then trying to make sure that he's using something in order not to feel anything anymore. That's, for example, one of the So could there be emotional blockage connected with another family member, or they're not getting something? Would that be fair? Whether it's love, appreciation, something else, maybe there's a deeper frustration, maybe the sibling is getting more attention from the father. There's a whole bunch of things that could be happening.
When there's a lot of pressure, sometimes it's easier to feel nothing or than to feel everything.
So moving on from addictions, marriage issues. How often does this come up? Clients to deal with,
Yes, a lot. I think we all know that there's a lot of divorces, and it's actually getting more and more people are deciding to separate. Now this is a very big deal, because it's not just always a huge life event that affects the children and the whole family, but especially when there's a family involved, it has huge potential financial consequences, and very important, no matter if you stay together or that you separate, is that you stay in a very good communication together and not into judgmental behavior. And there's actually a few different ways of communication that can really lead to a divorce.
Could you share a few?
Yes, sure.
A few tips for the viewers?
Of course,
if you're struggling in your relationship, before you sabotage the family legacy?
Yes, so there's 4 things absolutely not to do. The first one is criticism. So you always, or you're always too late. That's the first thing not to do.
You always leave this here.
Exactly. And a better way to do that is to start gentle, like when it's important for me, or it gives me a lot of joy if you ask me at the end of the day how my day was going, instead of saying, you never ask anything, or you're not interested in me, the criticism. And then the second one not to do is to always go into defense. So this is not me, I'm not here to blame, because basically then you get out of communication instead of being open and listening to what is truthful for the other person. So
being defensive, is that more of like a shutdown?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
And of course...
Avoidance.
Yep. What you could do is to take responsibility. I understand that you're saying that, that you like me to be more at home, or instead of saying, I don't want to discuss this. The third one is stonewalling. So I don't know if you recognize this, but let's say I keep on talking to you.
Is there any physical stones involved here or not?
No. But you're like a stone. So you're not even listening, you don't hear me anymore. You're completely out of contact, stonewalling. So whatever I'm saying, you just keep on reading your paper or doing something else, watching a television show, and that's just not hearing. You're not available for any communication, stonewalling. And then the fourth one is the most dangerous one. That's contempt.
Right.
Yeah.
That sounds serious.
That sounds serious, and that's like you're rolling the eyes and basically having so much hatred already inside of yourself that there's not a lot of positivity anymore. They say in relationships, you can so now and then have sort of like a negative communication, but it needs a lot of positive communication to build like an emotional bank account for the relationship to keep on working.
So if any of those four things are happening, and let's say it's first generation entrepreneurs, it could be a husband and wife business,
yes.
It's a family business.
Yes.
Some of these issues are going on.
Yeah.
They've got children who are observers. What impact could that have?
A lot, of course. You're like the perfect example, and that's how kids learn. Like, but they watch you and they understand. Oh, so this is how love works. Is this how we're supposed to be? And then that gets normal. You get conditioned by watching your family and your parents.
And those things then will show up again in
of course, and
10 or 15 or 20 years time.
And these are certain habits sort of get normal within systems, companies, or families. Yeah.
Wonderful. So outside of this, what other tips could you give our viewers when it comes to coaching, mentoring? We could talk a little bit about legacy mentors as well.
Yes, yeah. So it's something wonderful to have a mentor with you, to just have an extra pair of eyes next to you, because we all have our own perception.
So an external view?
External view.
Oh, okay.
We all have our own perception, and it's not easy to just see things in a different way. You have a broader perspective. But once we do, it often makes it more comfortable to actually deal with life experiences. We see more what is, and thereby we can be more authentic, and we can create the realities that we want to have, the life that we want to have. And the thing about people is that we have all our inner storytellers, and this is the way we're seeing the world, and everything that doesn't fit, we just try not to see. The broader that is, and that really helps with a mentor, is it gets more easy to create the life that we want to.
Wonderful. Don't forget to watch one of our other videos, by the way. We've got a gentleman called David Bell who's going to be talking about private dining club. Why have I brought that up? Because I want to ask you, how important is dinners?
Oh, very.
Tell us about why is it important?
Very important. Set and setting is everything. And instead we all have our masks in life, and it's so much more easy to just relax and be our authentic selves and show up in the way that we really are by, for example, having a dinner, by allowing ourselves to have a deeper connection with each other instead of trying to be. What
sort of frequency, should that be for a family? I mean, I know families here in the UAE where every Friday it's sacred. 20, 30, 40, 50 family members are together for lunch.
Yes.
Every Friday. What should be the frequency when it comes to maybe a smaller family?
So every culture is different, of course. But I think in general, like the smaller family, it's really nice to have sort of like a weekly gathering and start to talk in a different way with each other and really be together. What I see in bigger families, that it's very healthy, and as well in companies, to meet like every quarter that already would be amazing, and at least once per year to have like a special moment together.
Right.
Yeah.
Which could also be turned into a family retreat, linked with a vacation as well.
Exactly. 2-3 days.
Yeah.
Together somewhere in a beautiful place outside of your normal life, and then that's when you really can get to like some transformations or get to new insights together.
And could you tell us a bit about your work with Legacy Mentors? What
Yeah.
do you do for families when it comes to retreats or forums?
Yes, yeah. So I think 3 things that we mainly do. One is indeed offsite, so really taking a family or company for 2 or 3 days to a place and dive into something and creating this unity within a family. The other thing is one-on-one mentoring. I think this is what we mainly do to be there really for a person. This can be in person or it can be online. Or
and how long would that be for a typical intervention or a coaching mentoring program? Is that is it a one-off? Does it continue for months? Does it continue for years?
Yeah. I think in general it takes at least a year to really have any change in life, to take any next step or to have a different perception, etc. But I think really a mentor is there for a longer period of time to just be there to support you. But real transformation or real change is not possible really below a year time. It is very important though that there's a good connection with a mentor, so of course you can try it out for a few times and see how it works.
If things are going well, really well, family level, business level, wealth areas, do you still need the mentor? Or could one look at, hey, I'm fixed. I've learnt everything now, don't need a mentor?
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, 2 reactions. I don't think anybody is really fixed. I think we're human. So just
Good answer.
Life happens.
There's always going to be something. Yeah.
There's always something. There's always going to be change in life. There's always an up and a down. Do you really need somebody? No, I would never say you need a mentor. But it's like it's an extra support system, and it can ease conflicts, it can reduce struggle, it can create more authentic happiness and fulfillment in life. So it's like an extra thing that you can give as a gift to yourself.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, details are going to come below, a bit more about Legacy Mentors and the website, how you can connect with Loes as well and a team around the world. We've partnered up. We hope to make an impact to a lot of families around the world. And don't forget to subscribe, leave your comments, and watch some of the other videos on the channel. We've got Family Business Legacies, Family Business Q&A. Don't forget to watch Family Business Billionaires as well. And thank you very much for watching. Thanks, Loes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.